Yanji Jimbo Jordan Himijan, Zonel Mulam Jimbo Naviata, Bakr Targam Zanto Shirmado, Tomba Tuji Jan Laki Jamser, Najan Zerni Jankams, Jawar Tuji Shanley Alarm, Jim Panzoja Lasura, Hongedoban Purajan Lo.
To liberate sentient beings, please generate supreme bodhicitta before teaching. Today, we'll continue studying the Bodhicharyavatara. Within the Bodhicharyavatara, we're now studying the first chapter, which explains the excellence and benefits of bodhicitta. This topic is analyzed from three parts: the essence of bodhicitta, its categories, and the benefits of bodhicitta. Today, we'll study the differences between the two types of bodhicitta, the second part under the topic of the specific benefits of bodhicitta 2. Difference in essence. The verse goes like this: just as they know the difference between the wish to go and going, the wise should understand the contrast between these two. Respectively, yesterday, we studied the two types of bodhicitta, the aspirational bodhicitta and the engaged bodhicitta. This is really crucial, and we need to be clear about it. So, what is aspirational bodhicitta? The first condition is to focus on sentient beings with great compassion. And the second condition is to focus on complete enlightenment with wisdom. These are the twin aspects of bodhicitta. Once you have both, then you make the aspiration. Make the aspiration, from now on, I will benefit countless sentient beings. This is aspirational bodhicitta. Aspirational bodhicitta is just making the vow in your mind. So what is engaged bodhicitta? It means on the basis of aspiration, you enact your wish to benefit sentient beings to actually do it, not just an aspiration. And by enacting your wish, you engage in the 6 paramitas and the numerous bodhisattva conduct. This is called engaged bodhicitta. The specific difference between these two is clearly explained in the root verse. That is, in our daily life, everyone should understand there's difference between the wish to go and going. What does that mean? For example, if I want to go from here to Bodh Gaya in India or from here to Lhasa, first I must have the intention, I must want to go. Before I actually set out, I have this intention. This is like aspirational bodhicitta, because with aspirational bodhicitta, I make a firm vow to benefit sentient being in my heart. But in terms of actual action, I haven't started yet. When I have actually set out, if I'm heading to Bodh Gaya in India, I've got my travel expenses, my luggage, my clothes, everything is ready. Once everything's ready, I'm setting out. Then I'm actually heading there. This means going, as said in the root verse. What does it mean to formally head there? It means you engage in the conduct to benefit sentient beings, and your intention while doing it is the engaged bodhicitta. Some scholars think that at that time, for example, if I want to practice generosity, first I make the aspiration. After making the aspiration, the act of giving is called engaged bodhicitta. Here, bodhicitta is established in the mind. So is it just the action that counts as engaged bodhicitta? We should say action alone is not engaged bodhicitta. In other words, on the journey to India I mentioned earlier, I can't give up the initial aspiration. If I give up the initial aspiration, it's very likely I'll stop halfway or turn back. That's possible. The omniscient Gorampa of the Sakya school also said that on the path of the Bodhisattva, we must never abandon aspirational bodhicitta. Once we abandon aspirational bodhicitta, it's very likely that engaged bodhicitta won't arise. So the arising of engaged bodhicitta must always be based on aspirational bodhicitta. So here, the verse says that by knowing the difference between wishing to go and going, those with wisdom will fully understand the differences between these two types of bodhicitta, including their purposes, essence, and categories. What is engaged bodhicitta? What is aspirational bodhicitta? And also, what is their sequence? They'll fully grasp the difference between these two first. We must have aspirational bodhicitta as the foundation. Without a foundation of aspirational bodhicitta, there's no way to have engaged bodhicitta. So both of these must be present in the mind. Of course, among great masters of India and Tibetan Buddhism, there are various views about the intention of bodhicitta. For example, in India, the scholars Vunuktasena and Haribhadra thought that the intention of bodhicitta is actually a main mind. The Indian scholar Vasubandhu said in his A commentary on the Sutra of the Ten Bhumis that it's a mental state. He believed that since bodhicitta is a desiring intention, it is actually a mental state. Bodhicitta is actually also a kind of thought, so it can be included among mental states. The Tibetan master Longchenpa believed that as long as bodhicitta arises, it's a main mind, and when main mind arises, mental states will naturally arise as well, just like when the sun shines, its rays naturally appear. On the question of whether bodhicitta is a main mind or a mental state, there are different views among great masters. Whether it's a main mind or a mental state, everyone here needs to be clear about one point. So what is it that we must arouse bodhicitta? When we proceed to the third chapter, we'll take the Bodhisattva vow. So before that, everyone should be prepared in their hearts. Understand the meaning of aspirational bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta. Of course, on the surface, it seems like these two are easy to understand. One is wanting to benefit sentient beings, and the other is the mindset during the actual process of benefiting sentient beings. So on the surface, it seems easy to analyze, but actually their functions, their benefits, their rituals, and their essence. These distinctions between the two are actually pretty difficult. So this time, as we study the Bodhicharyavatara, all the Dharma friends who receive this teaching should be called Mahayana practitioners. You should have taken the Bodhisattva vow. If you've taken the Bodhisattva vow, then you should also know the trainings of the Bodhisattva vow. I hope everyone can be clear about these. For example, those with sharp faculties should refrain from the 18 or 20 root downfalls as listed in the Ratnakuta Sutra. For those with middling faculties, they need to avoid the 4 root downfalls as explained in the Compendium of Trainings. Those with dull faculties should observe one precept according to the Sutra of Instructions to the King. That is, not to abandon aspirational bodhicitta. So for everyone here, at the very least, you should have a basic vow. That is, from now on, no matter what obstacles you encounter, you will not abandon bodhicitta. If you abandon bodhicitta, there will be faults, which we will discuss later. The faults are actually quite serious. On one hand, bodhicitta really brings great benefits. We've already talked about these benefits for the past few days. But on the other hand, if we don't want to benefit sentient beings, if we now abandon aspirational bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta, then the faults are also quite serious. The fault of abandoning bodhicitta is explained in detail in the verse summary of the Perfection of Wisdom, so we really need to study this carefully. Of course, the categories and essence of bodhicitta might be a bit hard to understand for some lay people who have never received formal Buddhist education. Also, some of them might not have confidence in the teaching, because nowadays many people like to hear things that are simple and easy to understand, or to hear stories, or to talk about family, work, marriage, divorce, and so on. Many like to listen to topics like that, but I think this time, as we study the Bodhicharyavatara, we're not learning worldly things, worldly terms, concepts, and activities. I think lay people, especially those in cities, are already quite familiar with these. There's no need for monastics to explain them. What we really need are the Mahayana teachings, practices, visualization methods, and benefits. In these areas, many people are lacking. So for many Dharma friends, at the beginning, some terms or principles might be a bit hard to understand, but I hope you won't lose confidence. Make sure you will carefully read the Dharma text, which will be helpful. Just now, I just introduced the root verse in a general way. Next, in the commentary, it's explained like this. Just as you wish to go somewhere, the wish to attain enlightenment for the sake of others is aspirational bodhicitta. So what is aspirational bodhicitta? It's like the wish or intention of wanting to go to India or wanting to go to Lhasa. The aspiration of wanting to benefit sentient beings is called aspirational bodhicitta. We've already talked about this again and again. Everyone must keep this in mind, just as actually setting out for that place. To embark on the path that leads to Buddhahood, and to long for this path is engaged bodhicitta. So engaged bodhicitta is actually setting out, as described in the commentary, That is, we now practice generosity, discipline, patience, meditative concentration, diligence, and wisdom, using the 6 paramitas and 4 ways of attracting disciples as the skillful means to benefit sentient beings. The mindset during this process is what we call engaged bodhicitta, the wise who wish to accomplish benefit for self and others. By understanding the difference between these 2 analogies, we'll also understand the different sequence and meaning of aspirational and engaged bodhicitta, so only those with wisdom will truly understand this. Without wisdom, we might be able to talk about aspirational and engaged bodhicitta, but we might not fully understand them. So when it comes to aspirational and engaged bodhicitta, we can say they are one in essence, but different in aspect. We can understand it this way. Tsongkhapa, Gyaltsab Dharma Rinchen, and many other masters also held this view. They are one essence, different aspects. For example, sometimes we talk about the Bodhisattva vow, sometimes about Bodhicitta, sometimes about the vow of embracing virtue, the vow of refraining from non-virtue, and the vow of benefiting sentient beings. So how are these actually distinguished? Actually, it's not difficult to understand. One essence, different aspects. It's like a wish-fulfilling jewel. It can dispel darkness, it can also cure others' illnesses, and at the same time grant people whatever they wish for. Even though it's one wish-fulfilling jewel, it has different functions. In the same way, when we uphold bodhicitta, when we practice all virtuous deeds, at that time we are observing the vow of embracing virtue. Then, when we help sentient beings in the process of cultivating bodhicitta, we are observing the vow of benefiting sentient beings. And then when we practice bodhicitta, if we refrain from negative actions of body, speech, and mind, we observe the vow of refraining from non-virtue. So there are different aspects, and we should understand bodhicitta in this way too. Of course, whether in India or in the Tibetan regions, there are different views about at which stage bodhicitta actually arises. Regarding whether aspirational bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta are present in ordinary beings' minds or only in noble beings' minds, masters have different opinions. For example, the Indian master Buddhajnana Pada thought aspirational bodhicitta is present on the path of accumulation and the path of joining, and engaged bodhicitta exists in the minds of bodhisattvas on the first bhumi and above. Then, great Indian masters like Abhayakaragupta and Buddhajnana believe that aspirational bodhicitta is present on the path of accumulation, and engaged bodhicitta is present from the path of joining up to Buddhahood. There are also such views. Among the Indian scholars who wrote commentaries on the Bodhicharyavatara, there is one called Buddha Palita, if I recall correctly, and also Ratnakarashanti and Sagaramega. They believed that aspirational bodhicitta is a vow that is obtained without relying on a ritual, and engaged bodhicitta is a vow that is obtained by relying on a ritual. Prajnaparamati offered a different view. Prajnaparamati's commentary on the Bodhicharyavatara is very famous in India. And generally, among the 8 great Indian commentaries, people mainly rely on Prajnaparamati's commentary when studying the Bodhicharyavatara. It is known as the Great Commentary on the Bodhicharyavatara. He believes that what is called aspirational bodhicitta is when it is not accompanied by bodhisattva conduct, and when it is accompanied by bodhisattva conduct, that is called engaged bodhicitta. Rongton Sheja Kunrig of the Sakya school also holds this view. Lord Atisha believes that aspirational bodhicitta is the mind that aspires for Buddhahood. So the mind that focuses on the result is called aspirational bodhicitta. The mind that focuses on the cause is called engaged bodhicitta. Actually, Atisha's view is basically the same as that of Longchenpa. Longchenpa's view is basically the same. Anyway, whether in the Tibetan regions or India, many scholars have different views about aspirational bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta. Just now, I gave you a brief introduction. Great masters from India and Tibetan regions have different views about aspirational and engaged bodhicitta. I hope each of us can reflect on this ourselves, see whether those scholars' views regarding these 2 types of bodhicitta are correct. But generally, it is believed that absolute bodhicitta is only attained from the first bodhisattva bhumi and above, and Longchenpa, Jigme Lingpa, and Je Tsongkhapa, many great masters of Tibetan Buddhism believe. that relative bodhicitta is divided into aspirational bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta. Engaged bodhicitta should exist in the minds of ordinary beings. That is to say, if we start generating bodhicitta now, first we should make the vow to benefit beings. If we make the vow this morning and then at noon we start to help sentient beings, that is engaged bodhicitta. So aspirational bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta should be present in the minds of ordinary beings. These two types of bodhicitta must both be present. Next, let's talk about 3, the difference in merit. Earlier we talked about the shared merit of aspirational and engaged bodhicitta. Here we'll talk about their individual merit or benefits. First, let's talk about the merit of aspirational bodhicitta. Even in samsara, great results come from aspiring bodhicitta, though unlike engaged bodhicitta, the merit is not continuous. In the commentary, it says this: aspirational bodhicitta can bring about vast positive results or outcomes even while we are in samsara. That is to say, because this aspirational bodhicitta is the mind that seeks perfect, unsurpassed enlightenment, because it is the only cause for attaining Buddhahood, the benefits it brings are generally limitless. There's no different opinions regarding this point. Not to mention, when we finally attain Buddhahood, even temporarily, while we are in samsara, it brings great results. What kind of results? For example, you may be reborn in the heavenly realms as powerful and esteemed gods, such as Brahma, Indra, and so on. Or you may be reborn as a wheel-turning king in the human realm. Or you may be a great benefactor, a great elder, and so on. Even in the world now, there are some people with enormous wealth, some famous entrepreneurs with high status, or celebrities. These are also a kind of result in the world, even when they haven't attained liberation yet. They are completely different from ordinary people, whether in terms of wealth, power, or appearance, and they are endowed with merits and prestige. These are all result of aspirational bodhicitta. Aspirational bodhicitta has this kind of merit. But the merit of aspirational bodhicitta is different from that of engaged bodhicitta. So what's the difference between the two in terms of their merit? It is explained in the root verse. For engaged bodhicitta, once it arises in your mind stream, your merit increase moment by moment. It keeps increasing, continuous and non-stop. But for aspirational bodhicitta, even though it has limitless merit, it won't cause merit to increase as rapidly as engaged bodhicitta. Some people might ask, if the merit of aspirational bodhicitta doesn't increase continuously or moment by moment like the merit of engaged bodhicitta, then will the merit be exhausted once it is generated, just like the banana tree, which dies after the fruit ripens? Does the merit get used up after it is generated? It's not like that. There's a difference here. What's the difference? Aspirational bodhicitta is just like the wish-fulfilling tree, which has unending merit. But compared to practical bodhicitta, its rate of increase is not as high. It's like having a fixed deposit in the bank. Before you withdraw it, before the time is up, it's always there. In the same way, once you have generated aspirational bodhicitta, this merit will last all the way until Buddhahood. It will never be used up. But once you generated engaged bodhicitta, no matter if you are sleeping, fainting, or distracted, the merit keeps increasing and expanding. That's not the case with aspirational bodhicitta. Maybe some commentaries don't make it very clear. I hope you will reflect on this. Actually, the merit of aspirational bodhicitta is introduced in great detail in the Sutra of Instructions to the king. In this sutra, Buddha Shakyamuni gave this advice to the king. He said, "King, you have so many things to do. Your work is very busy. Day and night, your time is always occupied. So you are not able to practice all the countless bodhisattva conduct from the paramita of generosity all the way to the paramita of wisdom. But if you are able to generate the wish, aspiration, and confidence that all sentient beings may attain perfect Buddhahood." So, in the Sutra of Instructions to the king, the Buddha told the king, "You are very busy with work and you have so many things to do. Day and night, you're always busy, so you can't practice all the 6 paramitas and countless bodhisattva conduct. But if you can generate the wish that all sentient beings may attain perfect enlightenment with such intention, aspiration, and confidence, then whether you are sleeping, walking, sitting, or distracted, the merit of your bodhicitta will keep increasing. This is how the merit of aspirational bodhicitta is explained in the Sutra of Instructions to the King. From this story, we can also see that aspirational bodhicitta definitely has limitless merit, like the wish-fulfilling tree or like a precious vase. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, there is also the following passage. The Avatamsaka Sutra says, "Good man, just as a Vajra jewel, even if broken, is still superior to all the finest gold ornaments. Among all the precious jewels, there is one called the Vajra jewel." Some scholars now think this refers to a diamond. Anyway, a diamond is extremely valuable. Even if this Vajra jewel is damaged by other conditions, even if it's broken, its fragments are still of very high quality. Its fragments are still far superior to all gold earrings and other gold ornaments. It surpasses all kinds of gold jewelry. It's far superior to all gold ornaments. And it does not lose the name of Vajra jewel. People still call it a Vajra jewel. It's like some coral which is still valuable even if broken. For example, if a coral mala is broken, the beads can be inlaid into other ornaments or made into other jewelry. The value of the Vajra jewel is just like that. In the same way, good man, even if the Vajra jewel of bodhicitta is separated from diligence, it is still superior to all the gold ornaments of the merit of Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas. Here, it's made very clear that generating bodhicitta is just like a Vajra jewel, even if it's separated from diligence. Here, diligence refers to practical bodhicitta. If you've already generated the aspirational bodhicitta, but the engaged bodhicitta, or the actual diligence in action, isn't there yet, it still surpasses all the merit of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. Although Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas also have great merit, like the realization of selflessness of the individual and selflessness of phenomena, but in terms of truly benefiting sentient beings, they are somewhat lacking. So the merit of aspirational bodhicitta completely surpasses the gold ornaments of the merit of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. Please don't interpret this as meaning that bodhicitta is better than the gold jewelry worn by Shravaka Arhats or the gold jewelry worn by Pratyeka Buddhas. It doesn't mean it that way. It's just a metaphor here used to talk about merit. That is to say, this Vajra jewel of bodhicitta completely surpasses the merit of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. It uses the metaphor of gold and Vajra jewel to explain the merit this way. One does not lose the name of bodhisattva and can eliminate all poverty in samsara. So from this perspective, we can also see that aspirational bodhicitta can eliminate the root of samsara and all kinds of poverty in samsara, spiritual poverty and material poverty. That is, all the ignorance in samsara can be eliminated. However, it does not produce merit continuously like engaged bodhicitta does. This is the explanation for the specific merit of aspirational bodhicitta. Next, let's talk about the specific merit of engaged bodhicitta. But from the moment when, for the sake of freeing beings in infinite realms, you truly take up this intent with irreversible resolve, from that time on, the many powers of merit flow forth unremitting in torrents equal to the sky, even when you're asleep or careless. This verse talks about the merit of engaged bodhicitta. Although aspirational bodhicitta has great merit, comparatively speaking, the merit of practical bodhicitta is indeed greater. When we make the aspiration to benefit all sentient beings as vast as the sky, and we vow or resolve to never turn back, some commentaries say, even if you encounter danger to your life, you will not turn back. Bodhicitta has two aspects. One is what we just said, supported by action. The other is just making the wish to benefit all sentient beings. That's just a general kind of aspiration. When it comes to engaged bodhicitta, you reflect on again and again that no matter what difficulties you encounter, your resolve will not turn back. My resolve is irreversible, even if my body is destroyed, even if I'm shattered to pieces. We often say, a gentleman's word is his bond. A swift horse needs only one whip. Or what's said cannot be taken back. That is, what we say will never change. It's not like today I make this vow and tomorrow I go back on my word, or I don't want to do it anymore. In your heart, once you've truly made a statement, from then on, you will never regret it. You should make the resolve never to turn back from carrying out bodhicitta. Whenever this kind of intention arises in your mind stream, from that moment on, your merit keeps increasing. Of course, if you practice virtue, it goes without saying that your merit will be inconceivable. Even if you are a bit distracted, or if you're sleeping at night, or if you're careless, your actions may not be entirely proper, even if you're singing or dancing outside, or even if you're in a faint, or in your daily activities of walking, standing, sitting, and lying down. In all these, your merit, your virtue, born of the mind to benefit all sentient beings, will never be exhausted, and it keeps increasing moment by moment. Its amount becomes as vast as space, so immense and boundless. So we should try to arouse engaged bodhicitta in our mind stream, which is extremely important if we don't generate it. Then when we do a virtuous deed today, it's just a single virtuous deed. After its merit is used up, there's nothing left. But if we truly practice with bodhicitta, then the merit is extremely great. In the past, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche also taught this. He said that if in your mind stream the engaged bodhicitta is present, which will never regress, even in the face of death on that basis, if you recite the Avalokiteshvara mantra once, if you recite Om Mani Padme Hum once, the merit of that single recitation will keep increasing until you attain Buddhahood. If you don't have bodhicitta as the support, no matter how many mantras you recite, or how many virtuous deeds you do, or what kind of generosity you practice, or how good your intention is, actually the merit generated is limited and will be used up after a certain point. So in our daily actions, we should observe our own mind. Each of us should check what kind of motivation we really have. Have we ever generated such an aspiration in our mind streams? Have we ever truly made this kind of vow? We should observe this for ourselves. The commentary says this: from the moment, for the sake of freeing all limitless sentient beings from the bondage of karma and afflictions and the prison of samsara, when in your mind stream you generate the aspiration, from now on I will liberate all the pitiful beings in samsara. As long as samsara is not emptied, with an unwavering altruistic mind, you truly uphold engaged bodhicitta from that moment on, If you don't lose this engaged bodhicitta, then even if you are sleeping or intoxicated, or if you've taken sleeping pills and can't move at all, actually, the merit in your mind stream keeps increasing and increasing without a stop. So after we've really generated bodhicitta, it's like we're already in a sleeper on the train. We can just sleep all the way with no need to walk at all. Naturally, the train will take us to our destination quickly. But if we haven't generated bodhicitta, if we haven't gotten on the train, we can only walk to our destination step by step. So when we engage in virtuous deeds, we must practice with bodhicitta. It's important to be clear about the significance of bodhicitta. In Tibetan Buddhism, some people do a lot of ascetic practice. Sometimes their spirit of asceticism is really admirable and praiseworthy. It's truly worthy of respect and praise. For example, from the calm region, some people do full body prostrations all the way to Lhasa, and that's thousands of kilometers. So doing full body prostrations in itself is an intense ascetic practice, so to speak. If a person who doesn't have bodhicitta prostrates every 3 steps from here to Lhasa, it might take him about a year. There is another one who does full body prostrations here for just 1 day with the mind of bodhicitta. From a long-term perspective, which person's merit is greater? It should be the one who prostrates here, because prostrating with bodhicitta as the skillful means brings great merit. So in our practice, we also need wisdom. Without wisdom, it's really hard to practice effectively. For example, in Han Buddhism, some practitioners are also very ascetic and diligent. They get up at 4 in the morning to start reciting the Buddha's name and keep reciting until 8 or 9 at night. They keep reciting like this without stopping. But in your mind stream, do you have bodhicitta as the support? If you don't have bodhicitta as the support, is that merit really great? I believe you know the answer. So in the future, whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, whatever virtuous deed you do, first, practice with bodhicitta. And when you practice with bodhicitta, just as it's explained in the treatises, whenever this mind arises in your mind stream, From then on, unless you generate the thought, I will never benefit sentient beings again, I will never generate bodhicitta again, unless you generate such a negative thought, the merit in your mind stream will keep increasing. So here, we must be clear about this. What is the greatest merit? This is a very important question. Here it also says, from that moment on, even if you are in a faint or intoxicated state, great good fortune will keep arising again and again. Such vast and boundless merit will keep arising in your mind stream. And for someone with engaged bodhicitta, even if they may appear to commit negative actions, actually it becomes a cause for accumulating merit. In fact, it turns into the cause for gathering accumulations. When teaching about generating bodhicitta, Longchenpa specifically used some stories from the Upayakosalya Sutra to illustrate this point. For example, there was a captain called Compassionate Heart. Out of compassion, Compassionate Heart killed a black spearman. On the face of it, the captain, who was a bodhisattva, killed a man, so he should have lost his bodhisattva vow. But actually, because his motivation was especially pure, with the least selfish motivation, he gained as much merit as would normally take 40,000 eons to achieve. Also, a Brahmin named Lover of the Stars gave up his vow of chastity and married a Brahmin girl who fell so hopelessly in love with him out of great compassion. This act brought him 40,000 eons of merit. On the surface, the acts of killing and breaking the vow of chastity should have been false, but actually, if done by someone with bodhicitta, even actions that look improper on the surface can actually become merit. Of course, this kind of state is probably not something ordinary people can reach. Using altruism as an excuse to do all sorts of improper things is not in accordance with the Dharma. The point of the root text here is not that you can just sleep all day after generating bodhicitta, or be in a daze all day, or sleep in every day, thinking that even if you're always lazy, your merit still keeps increasing. Some people think, well, I've already generated bodhicitta now. As long as my bodhicitta isn't lost, I'm already rich. It's like I've put my money in the bank and I can just live off the interest. I can live it off for as many years as I want. There was a rich man who said, I've put all my money in the bank. I just live off the interest and that's enough for my whole life. He told me about this a lot. So some of us practitioners might also think this way. Now that I've generated bodhicitta, from now on, I don't need to practice or memorize texts or read books. I can just sleep every day. But that's not what it means. If you really have bodhicitta in your mind stream, then maybe it's possible, but it's hard to say. Truly great, accomplished masters should have this kind of merit. In the past, when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche went to spread the Dharma outside the valley at noon, he would sometimes fall asleep, but we would really generate the faith in our hearts that he was completely different from us. Even though he was sleeping, actually, his merit was still increasing. His merit in his mind stream would keep increasing, because for someone as great as him, none of us disciples would ever doubt that he's a bodhisattva or has bodhicitta. No one would think that he's not a bodhisattva or doesn't have bodhicitta. So truly, some bodhisattvas aren't necessarily always meditating, reciting the Buddha's name, or reading books, even if on the surface they spend all day traveling or relaxing outside or just watching things all day. And on the surface, it might look like they're not practicing virtue. Actually, their bodhicitta is always increasing. This kind of phenomenon does exist. But in any case, you should know your own state of practice. Just like drinking water, only you know if it's hot or cold. You should examine your own mind to see the state of your bodhicitta. What is it really like? Have you made this vow? If you have, do you ever turn back when you encounter obstacles? If you never turn back and you have this kind of mind in your mind stream, then from then on, your merit will truly keep increasing. If you don't have this bodhicitta as the support, no matter what you do, the merit is actually not that great. So this time, I also want to take this opportunity to encourage everyone. In your own practice, always practice with bodhicitta. This is something I pray for you all again and again. And since bodhicitta is extremely important, I also encourage you to share it with others. At the same time, as we study the Dharma, can we share such wonderful teachings with many Buddhists and non-Buddhists? Why? Because nowadays many Buddhists, don't really have bodhicitta in their mind stream. Not that many, as I mentioned before. Most Buddhists are just seeking some human or heavenly blessings. So can these people change their direction through our effort? This is something each of us should think about. And also, for those who don't believe in Buddhism, can we try every possible way to help them take refuge in Buddhism? These sentient beings are really pitiful, not to mention the emptiness of ultimate truth. They don't even understand the basics of conventional truth, like past and future lives, karma and its results, or the merit of bodhicitta. Most people are just running around for money, for life, for work, and wasting their precious human life. So, as we study the Bodhicharyavatara this time, which may take a year or a year and a half or 8 or 9 months during this process, can we bring someone to learn Buddhism, introduce them to such wonderful teachings? I'm not saying our Buddhist Study Association needs a lot of members. I don't think that's necessary. If there's no bodhicitta in your mind stream, even if there are hundreds of millions of people, it doesn't benefit much. If there is bodhicitta in your mind stream, even a dozen people are enough. I'm not saying our group needs more and more people. It's not about numbers. But the work of spreading the Dharma and benefiting beings depends on each person. If each of us, in our own lives, even in the little things of daily life, can share the spirit of the Dharma with others, help others understand the Dharma, and truly gain benefit, then we have generated bodhicitta. If you've generated bodhicitta, don't just think, I've already made the aspiration to benefit sentient beings. I'll do it later when I grow up or in a later time. Don't think like that. We may not have the ability to benefit all sentient beings in the universe. That's not something we can do. But here are the people around us, our friends and family. If we share with them about the merit of the Dharma, about the merit of bodhicitta, some of them will likely generate bodhicitta, even if they don't generate bodhicitta. If you fail the first time or the second time, it doesn't matter. That's not a big failure in life. It's totally normal. Ordinary people from beginningless time have always been very attached to themselves because of confusion. So even if they don't accept it, even if they oppose it, for us, there's nothing to be disappointed about. So in the process of practice, I hope everyone can have some influence on the people around you. Help them gradually learn the Dharma and truly generate an altruistic mind in their mind stream. Such an altruistic mind, as I mentioned a few days ago, is extremely important for families, for society, and for the country. It's also extremely precious for the nation. If more and more people generate an altruistic mind, then all the famines, wars, and disasters in the world will gradually disappear. These will gradually disappear because in each of our hearts there is love and compassion and a mind that selflessly gives everything. How many people in our society today have this kind of mind? Probably not so many. So I think this is also a contribution to society. From a worldly perspective, it's also a great contribution to the spreading of the Dharma next. Let's talk about another root verse. Earlier, we talked about the merit of engaged bodhicitta. This verse continues to illustrate this point, the legitimacy of their merit. This is proved through scriptural evidence and also through reasoning. First, scriptural evidence for its legitimacy. The Tathagata himself explained this and its reasons for the sake of beings inclined to the lesser in the sutra requested by Subahu. Some people might think, although it said that bodhicitta has such and such merit, is this merit really reasonable? How could there be such limitless merit? Some people have this kind of doubt, especially for those who don't understand Buddhism or don't believe in Buddhism, and those who are followers of the lesser vehicle. When they hear about the Buddha's long years of ascetic practice and giving away his wife, children, head, eyes, brain, and so on, they may not accept this kind of difficult, heroic spirit. Some followers of the lesser vehicle just can't handle it. These people may think or doubt, is it really possible that the so-called bodhicitta has such boundless merit? So here's how we can answer. For those who believed in the lesser vehicle, those who sought self-liberation, the compassionate Buddha himself specifically explained the limitless merit of bodhicitta in the sutra requested by Subahu. And this limitless merit is completely reasonable, just as Nagarjuna said, since sentient beings are limitless. When we generate aspirations for those limitless sentient beings, the merit is also limitless. So this is extremely reasonable. Nagarjuna also explained that this is very reasonable. The root verse has explained that this is very reasonable. In Khenpo Kumpal's commentary on the Bodhicharyavatara, he used 4 kinds of inconceivable reasoning to explain that it's reasonable. The object of bodhicitta, which is sentient beings, is limitless. The suffering it can eliminate is limitless. The merit of attaining Buddhahood is limitless, and the time it takes is also limitless. Through these 4 kinds of limitlessness, it's reasonable to establish merit of bodhicitta, the boundless merit of bodhicitta. Such limitlessness is extremely reasonable. The fact that engaged bodhicitta can generate so much merit is reasonable, and the reliable scriptural source is the sutra requested by Subahu. So, as we study the Bodhicharyavatara this time, following the commentary by Tokme Zangpo is really good because he quotes only Mahayana sutras, which are accepted and recognized by all the different schools. So many people might wonder, the Bodhicharyavatara by Shantideva from India, even though it's very beneficial, can you actually find scriptural sources for every line he says? Is there a basis for it, or did he just make it up? Or did he just imagine it himself? If you have this kind of doubt, in this commentary you can see that for all the major points, Togme Zangpo quotes various Mahayana sutras to explain. Here, for the sutra requested by Subahu, there may be several different versions. So in many Tibetan Buddhist commentaries, when they quote it, some of the wording is not exactly the same in order to lead all those with faith in the lesser vehicle to the Mahayana. All here just means a certain portion. To help these people with lesser vehicle faculties to Mahayana, some of us shouldn't think, I'm a Mahayana practitioner, I'm so great. Actually, we shouldn't look down on practitioners of the lesser vehicle. Why? Practitioners of the lesser vehicle have already realized the selflessness of the individual. The state of an arhat is very high. They have realized no self. Their wisdom is definitely greater than ours. They definitely have some compassion for sentient beings. So it's not right to think, you're just a lesser vehicle type. It's wrong to think this way. Even among practitioners of the lesser vehicle, there are great ones. If you compare an arhat to us ordinary people, their compassion and wisdom are definitely greater than ours. In every way, we're not as good right now. In our own mind stream, we might not even have renunciation. Today I met a Lama who said, hey, our institute is so comfortable now. It's like spring all year round. So comfortable. Spring is here, it's so comfortable. I said, don't be attached too much. Otherwise, you may find it hard to generate any renunciation at all. He asked, why? Because you think this samsara is so happy, so comfortable. How could you ever want to leave it, to attain liberation, to transcend samsara? Just joking. Now back to the question. We shouldn't think. These lesser vehicle practitioners are such pitiful beings. Even the Buddha holds the same as ours here. Sometimes we're the pitiful ones. We often can't generate faith in the true teachings of Buddhism. Our self-grasping and attachment are especially strong. So here, the Buddha just taught for some people with lesser vehicle faculties. In addition to practitioners of the lesser vehicle, the Buddha also intended to guide some others, people who don't really understand Buddhism, to the Mahayana. The Buddha said in this sutra, if for the benefit and happiness of limitless sentient beings I put on the armor, then the scope of benefiting all beings is limitless, and since the virtue is also limitless, even if I am careless or asleep. Still, day and night, in every moment, the virtue increases, becomes stronger, and is perfected. This scriptural source explains it in great detail. What it means is that sentient beings are limitless, which means the object for us to benefit is limitless. When we generate bodhicitta, it's like putting on the armor of confidence. The sentient beings we focus on are limitless, so the merit we gain is also limitless, and the virtue we dedicate is also limitless. The happiness that sentient beings receive is also limitless. So here, there are several kinds of limitlessness. When you combine all these kinds of limitlessness, the limitless merit of bodhicitta is established. So even if you are asleep, as long as engaged bodhicitta has arisen in your mind stream and you never turn back, then your merit keeps increasing. As long as you never turn back, your merit keeps growing. So in daily life, we should observe our own mind stream. This time, do you really have bodhicitta in your mind stream? Of course, you don't have to think every day, did I do something wrong today? Did I have it today or not? You don't need to think like that. The most important thing is to first make the vow, and after making the vow, from then on, don't break it. This is what we've always said. And in daily life, everyone should also pay attention. For example, when we ask everyone to do group practice in the morning, you should think in your heart, I am someone who has generated bodhicitta. So, from now until Buddhahood, I want to benefit sentient beings. I've made this vow, made this aspiration. Then I should take it step by step. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. If I take it step by step, then today I shouldn't harm sentient beings. Every morning you should think like this. If you think like this, then throughout the day, no matter who you interact with, no matter what obstacles you encounter, just remember in your heart, I already made the vow this morning, so today I'll be as patient as possible. Today I must practice virtue with bodhicitta. If every day we use this method to discipline ourselves, this way to counteract our afflictions, then the bodhicitta in our mind streams will keep increasing. So as ordinary beings, we need to remind ourselves often. This is really important. Whether you're walking or eating, always remind yourself in your daily actions, I'm different from others. I'm someone who has generated bodhicitta. In front of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, in front of all the teachers, I have already generated bodhicitta. You should think this way about yourself. If you are monastic, then you should think, I'm a monastic, I shouldn't do this. Lay people may do all sorts of bad things and do all kinds of evil things, but as a monastic, I will never do that. You have a kind of self-control, a kind of restraint for yourself. In the same way, now that you've generated Mahayana bodhicitta, whether you're a lay person or a monastic, you should always remind yourself this way. You should always remind yourself like this. This is something you must never forget. For example, if you're a lay person living in the city, but you really have bodhicitta in your mind stream, and a monastic in a monastery, if he doesn't have bodhicitta in his mind stream, then if both of them practice virtue, whose merit is greater? I think the merit of the layperson's practice is greater, even if the monastic spends all day in the monastery reciting the Buddha's name and has cut off all the 5 sensual pleasures outside. But if he hasn't generated bodhicitta in his mind stream, if he's just seeking his own liberation or just passing the time, then even if the layperson doesn't have much time to recite the Buddha's name or the conditions to do good deeds, but if he has a kind bodhicitta with this kind bodhicitta as the support, all the merit in his mind stream keeps increasing. Even if you just get up in the morning and recite Om Mani Padme Hung or Namo Amitabha, the merit of that will keep increasing throughout the day. Even if you don't do any other virtuous deeds, it keeps increasing all the way until Buddhahood. If that monastic in the monastery who doesn't have bodhicitta recites Namo Amitabha every day, but his merit doesn't increase. So this is something everyone should pay attention to. I'm not saying that the merit of taking ordination isn't great. Of course it is. I think each of us understands this, but the merit of one's motivation is not determined by appearances. It depends on each person's own mindset. So at every moment, can you remind yourself or demand of yourself thinking, I am someone who has generated bodhicitta. Whether you're interacting with anyone or dealing with any situation or facing any matter, you should restrain yourself and constantly be in the state of bodhicitta. So your behavior will definitely change. If there's a change, that's the behavior of a bodhisattva. Okay, we'll stop here for today.
Jupun Sonen Droa
Bandangara Badma Sodargye Bandangara Badma Sodargye Bandangara Badma Sodargye